Hello, this is Storybooks channel. New videos are posted every day. Subscribe and click the bell.
Ouch! Maria jumped out of her chair. What are you doing? It hurts. She took a wide step to the side, rubbing her eye, leaving the makeup artist with an untrusting look. What am I paying money for? The makeup girl rolled her eyes. She tried to put on a friendly smile, but it turned out to be quite unbelievable. Her plump lips folded into narrow stripes, her eyes narrowed in a wicked squint. I'm sorry, it's just that you're such a difficult customer, and there's a lot of pressure. Just sit tight, and it won't happen again. I promise. She made a conciliatory gesture with her hand, inviting the disgruntled client back into the chair. Go back to your seat, please. Maria staggered back. She immediately lowered her eyes in embarrassment with her hand, reaching up to touch her face. The makeup artist shrieked, "Don't touch the face." She joined Maria, gently took her under the arm, forcing her back into the chair. I spent so much time evening out my tone. Never touch your face during makeup. Never touch your face at all. It's bad for your skin. She lowered her voice by half a tone, especially in your case. Maria obediently sat down in the chair. The makeup artist's words hurt her, but she tried not to show it. Maria took a deep breath, quietly exhaled into the air, replied, "Okay, but be careful. You almost took away my eye with that brush. If you continue like this, or if I don't like the result, I won't pay for the makeup." Keep that in mind. The makeup artist is visibly pissed off. Stop fidgeting in that case. Are you such a difficult customer? Maria got angry in response. I can't help but fidget when I'm wearing so much foundation. Anymore, and I just choke on it. Apply it evenly, then I'll sit still. You're supposed to be a professional. You're a girl, I didn't get a chance to finish. A makeup brush flew to her right eye again. She jumped up from her seat again and shouted, "What the hell is this? Are you going to calm down or not?" Replied the makeup artist, losing her patience. "You need to talk less, just let me finish my work." She threw the brush down roughly. A table nearby, she closed her hands in her hair, glancing upward. "I can't use less foundation in your case, I can't, especially with your requests." Maria's heart skipped a couple of thuds. She was silent for a while, trying to pull herself together. Her knees trembled with resentment. "What do you think you're doing?" "Me?" She stopped halfway through. A lump came to her throat. "What right do you have to comment on my appearance? Who asked your advice? You're behaving inappropriately." The makeup artist, realizing that the makeup would probably never be finished, and the client would probably leave the beauty salon with hysterics soon, decided to answer as she wanted. "You were told right away that in your case makeup will not help." She turned away from Maria, unable to look at that face any longer. "Look at yourself. I can't hide all this horror. I'm sorry, but no amount of foundation will help. Scars like that can only be removed with a laser, not makeup. And that picture of the girl you showed me? Neither I nor anyone else could make you look that beautiful. Let's face it." Maria was stunned. Throughout her life, she had not once had to listen to caustic and not always pleasant comments about her external data. But what would that be? And even in a beauty salon, the girl abruptly turned around and headed towards the exit. Sorry, I thought the makeup artist," but her words dissolved in the walls of the hall, without reaching their addressee. Maria, unable to hold her tears in herself any longer, jumped out of the beauty salon, not even having time to complain about the rudeness of the master to the administrator. Maria walked through the park towards her home, choking on her tears. Already applied, but not yet fixed foundation crawled over her face in layers. Her small eyes, covered by the newest eyelid, were reddened with tears, and the day was off to such a good start. A couple of weeks ago, Maria met a handsome man on the internet. After chatting for a while, the young people realized that they liked each other, and the latter decided to invite the girl he liked to a restaurant for a date. The fact that Maria worked as a chef in the restaurant where the date was set, Maria did not say. Nor did she say that all the pictures she had posted on the dating site were not really hers. Maria had never been particularly beautiful. The short, full-figured girl had always had a lot of complexes about her appearance. It seemed to her that her arms were too short in relation to her body. Her eyes seemed to be too small and her ears too protruding, bursting through her liquid hair. Her lips seemed too thin, her anus too big. She even thought that her voice was wrong and sounded silly and childish. The girl's complexes grew with her. Every year it seemed to her that she looked worse and worse. Thick and short fingers did not go any manicure. No clothes could not hide the imperfections of her figure, and her ears did not want to hide behind loose hair. Maria grew older and older, and while all her classmates were already dating boys, Maria continued to drown in her complexes alone. Her friends said, "Don't worry, you look good, never mind." But Maria knew perfectly well that they were lying brazenly and rudely. Her friends were lying right to her face. Why? Maybe to make fun of the ugly duckling. Maybe they really wanted the best for Maria. Or maybe they were trying to boost their self-esteem at the expense of their ugly friend. Either way, Maria didn't see any reason. Why couldn't she believe that she looked normal? Maybe not like a beauty queen, of course, but quite like an average teenage girl. Maria was getting older. Her imperfections were becoming more noticeable. She'd already graduated from high school and was studying to be a chef, but she'd never gotten a boyfriend. She resorted to the help of cosmetics, even went to style courses, but all in vain. Young men never paid any attention to her, and the girl's complexes grew bigger and bigger. Maria kept walking, choking on her tears. A date was out of the question. Makeup failed, and to go like this simply not. The girl could not afford to appear on a date like this. At least it would be unfair to the young man who asked her out. After all, in fact, he didn't ask her out at all. She came home, ignoring the neighbors that kindly asked her why she was in tears, washed her face, washed off her failed makeup, looked at herself in the mirror, all the same small eyes, all the same colorless eyebrows, making the look even more closed, all the same big nose. And those scars. Maria punched the mirror with force, nearly breaking it. Ran out of the bathroom, went into the kitchen, pressed the kettle button, pulled out a stalk of dried mint, threw it into the cup along with the tea bag. I'll never find anyone. There's a reason the makeup artist said nothing can help me anymore. I'm ugly, ugly. Her own thoughts seemed to strangle her more than any rope. The kettle boiled. She chugged the fragrant tea, picked up a fancy blue cup with a funny face on it, walked to the living room, opened her laptop. Expectedly, on the dating site, where Maria sat under the fake photos, already hung a lot of messages from a young man named David, who called the girl on a date. Maria, good afternoon, wrote a handsome man whose profile was filled with photos from fishing. We're on the same page. Can't wait to meet you, he wrote. Maria took a big sip, her eyes shielded once again from tears. She left the cup. Thick fingers tapped on the keyboard. Hi, David. Sorry, I'm swamped with work. I can't make it tonight. Sorry. She stared at her message for a couple of minutes, then abruptly pressed the button. The sender jumped up from the office chair where she always sat at her laptop. Pensively, she paced the room. I can't go out with him without preparation, she reasoned. He'd realized that all the photos in my profile weren't mine. And then what? No, I couldn't go. While Maria was thinking about the right thing to do, the speakers connected to her laptop sounded an alert. She was at the computer in a flash, staring at the new message. Too bad, a man was writing. In that case, maybe we could reschedule the date for tomorrow. Maria's small eyes grew a little bigger with surprise. She couldn't hold back a swear word. Damn. Her fingers tapped on the glowing keyboard again. No, tomorrow won't work either. I'll be working. Thoughts swirled chaotically in her head. Why? Why did I agree to a date? Since the surrendered notification sound let me know Maria had responded again. David had written well when we were able to meet. Maria waved away an incoming tear. Never, replied the girl and immediately deleted her page from the dating site. When Maria graduated from culinary school, she finally realized that it was time to take life into her own hands. At that moment, the girl decided not to pay attention to her appearance, whether there are few ugly people in this world. Maria's mother from childhood told her daughter that every pot has its own lid, meaning that even an unremarkable girl like Maria could find her true love. She realized that it was time to act, and finally started actively searching for a future partner to live together. After all, she wanted to have a family and children more than anything else in the world. A series of failures awaited the girl. In most cases, those young people whom she approached in order to get acquainted with them refused the unhappy, lonely girl. Some did it gently, for example, saying that they were already busy with someone else. Some refused her in a rude way, hinting at her not the most attractive appearance. Maria did not despair, they mocked her, hardly hurting her. After all, Maria had lived her whole life with such appearance and was quite used to the fact that not all people have a sense of tact. Maria did not give up trying to get acquainted with anyone. Wandered around clubs and bars, but in most cases she failed. Nobody wanted to get acquainted with her. Nobody paid any attention to her. Time passed, and eventually such persistence paid off. Maria met him, Jacob. With Jacob, they met in a small coffee shop. The girl immediately turned her attention to an unremarkable, but very interesting young man. He was sitting in the farthest corner of the cafeteria, tucked into his laptop. He was wearing an indifferent gray hoodie. Round glasses with thick lenses were placed over his gray eyes. Next to the laptop was a large glass of coffee. Maria thought to herself, well with God, and having inhaled, moved towards the young man. He didn't look up when Maria was next to him. She was silent for a short while, then began the conversation hello. She, embarrassed, coughed into her fist. Are you here? One young man did not respond, and she had to repeat her question. Jacob perked up, started fidgeting foolishly in one place. He noticed Maria, wiped his glasses, asked, Are you talking to me? Yes, yes. For you, Maria smiled with thin lips. Are you alone? Well, yes, he was visibly embarrassed, pulling a wide hood over his forehead. Why, wouldn't you like to meet me? Jacob seemed to be at a loss for words. What? He asked protractedly. Are you sure it's for me? Yes, to you. Maria continued to smile. Do you mind? I'll sit down. So Maria had her first young man in her life. Jacob was a little older than the girl. The young people had the impression that all their lives they had been looking for each other. They were so much alike, both unremarkable, both far from the ideal of beauty, both drowning in terrible complexes. Their relationship was developing at a frantic pace. For each of them, it was their first relationship. Jacob worked from home as a programmer. After 6 months, the young man proposed to his beloved to move in together, and now they rented an apartment together. Maria was happier than ever. At that moment, she already had a good high-paid job in a prestigious restaurant, and now she had her own man. All she lacked for complete happiness was one happy marriage and, of course, children. Maria decided to continue taking life into her own hands and proposed to the guy on her own. Jacob agreed. Of course, this is not how he saw his future bride, but still it is better than nothing. Jacob dreamed of a tall, slender girl, and a girl with thick hair and naturally lush lips. Maria, yes, Maria was by no means a model. But how long could they keep waiting for their beauty queen? Jacob agreed to this marriage and even managed to come to terms with the idea that this girl was his destiny. The partners' relationship continued to develop, and now Jacob introduced Maria to his family. Coming to the house of her future husband, Maria was stunned. His sister was just an ideal of beauty. Gorgeous, insanely beautiful, and the girl was not at all like her brother. She possessed a good figure. Her thin nose fascinated with its grace, and large gray eyes captivated beauty. Maria had always dreamed of looking the way her future husband's sister looked. After meeting the family, a strong friendship developed between Maria and Molly and her sister Jacob. Maria, what is it? Molly rounded her already large eyes. Forbid what? But who wears that nowadays? Maria was embarrassed, looking herself over from head to toe. Well, she held out this dress. What's wrong with it all? Molly was indignant. She hasn't worn one of those in about 20 years. My brother loves with his eyes. And you? Don't you look after yourself at all? Molly, I understand. Maria started to justify herself. There's just not much that fits my figure. How about this? At least it hides imperfections. And it doesn't fit you either, Molly summarized. Okay, that's not why I asked you here. That day, when Molly invited Maria to the cafe, a strange thing happened. Maria often thought about the request her friend had asked her to make. Who would have thought that her life would change so drastically because of a small thing? Anyway, I need help. Molly started the conversation. Can I count on you? Of course, Maria nodded and his head was too big compared to his body. Why? I met a man. This man is a dream. Molly tilted her head dreamily to the side, but I don't know how to please him at all. What? Maria was genuinely surprised. You don't know how to get a man. You're a model. Oh yes, a model. But that doesn't seem to be enough. So can you help me? She reached forward and gently took Maria's hand in hers. We're friends. Oh yes, of course. What do I have to do? Great. Molly smiled victoriously. I've got an idea. You're a good cook. Yeah, maybe I'll make some interesting dish, and I'll pretend I made it. Then he'll realize I'm a good cook and marry me. What do you say? Maria frowned. Colorless eyebrows. Well, I'll help you, of course, but you don't like to cook. So what of it? Molly poked. I hate cooking, but he doesn't need to know that. But why should you if you marry him and he makes you cook? What's the point of that? Molly laughed good-naturedly. I'll deal with that on the spot. But will you help me? Maria thought for a moment. Friendship with such a beautiful and insanely beautiful girl liked her even more than the fact that she had a young man of her own. Sometimes it even seemed to her that when Molly was around, Maria herself was transformed, becoming a little more beautiful and attractive. But this, Maria felt a pang of guilt. It was a lie after all, and Maria hated lies with all her soul. But to lose a friend because of my principles, I will help, Maria replied. At that moment, she did not know that this consent would almost cost her own life. The day of X came. Molly thought over every single detail. She rented an apartment and invited her mysterious man to dinner, which she supposedly had to cook herself, a little earlier than the appointed time Maria was to come, and all Molly's planned to realize in reality. And so when the clock showed 18 o'clock, Maria arrived at the appointed place, armed with ingredients and her handy and good utensils. Hi, Maria, smiling, walked into the apartment. It's very nice here. Would you say this is your home? Yeah, Molly replied blankly. Careful. Weighting the outline of her lips with a dark brown pencil. I'm pretending to be on the money too. You know, so he thinks I'm in his circle. I'm also a great hostess. He'll realize that I'm not just a brainless model, but also a good person, and he'll understand and marry me. There you go. Cool. Sincerely admired Maria. Well, then I'll go cook. Yeah, go. Molly never bothered to look in her friend's direction. By the way, I will cook spit cream soup. Roughly interrupted her friend by the girl. Just cook it and run quickly to Jacob. My man must not see you, do you understand? Hurry up. Our date is scheduled for 8 o'clock. Maria was embarrassed and, without saying anything in reply, disappeared through the doorway of the spacious kitchen. She quickly laid out the ingredients, took out a large frying pan, because she could only cook in her own dishes, and she set to work. Maria had always loved to cook. There was something peaceful in it, something else that made the young girl's heart beat more often. To see how close people taste what she cooked herself, with her own hands. Maria loved cooking with all her soul. She didn't notice the time she spent doing what she loved. So when Molly ran into the kitchen with frantic eyes, Maria was genuinely surprised. What's wrong? She asked. I have all the dishes almost ready. Long, irritated Molly cooked. It will take you a very long time to take everything. He's already in the driveway. Up. Maria became visibly nervous. Her hands shook with fear. What should we do? You said he mustn't see me. Should I leave? No. Molly bellowed back. What about the dish you haven't finished? She ran her thin fingers through her thick blonde hair. She thought. So you stay here. Keep cooking. I'll put on some music in the living room so he won't hear that there's anyone here besides us. I'll lock you in the kitchen, in case he wants to come into the kitchen. Anyway, just sit tight and go make some food. We'll deal with it from here. Maria nodded her head, grabbing the big kernel. Okay, and if he really wants to go into the kitchen? How will you explain that it's off limits to him? I don't know, replied the girl irritably. I'll figure it out. Then the doorbell rang. I'm going. Stay quiet. And Molly, correcting her dress, went out of the kitchen, locking the room. Well, business, Maria thought to herself and continued cooking dinner for her friend. At some point, curiosity moved in, and she tiptoed closer to the door, trying to overhear the conversation. Indeed, some man. The voice was pleasant, husky. They seemed to be discussing the weather. Maria shook her head. Their conversation is none of my business. I need to finish cooking and get out of here without being seen. She thought and went back to cooking. When the first dish was done, there was a click of the door opening and a worried Molly appeared in the kitchen. Well, are you finished? She asked. Almost, Maria replied. The soup is ready and the meat is ready. Only the pie remained, but that was quickly realized. The girls talked in whispers, trying to make sure that Molly's man did not hear that she was not alone in the kitchen. I told him I had everything ready and only needed to take everything out of the oven. I'm gonna bring out a platter, like I cooked them, you know. Come on, finish up, and I'll have to sneak you out. This is going really well so far. We can't screw it up. Great. Maria smiled. I'm happy for you. Thank you. Molly took the tray and quietly left the kitchen, remembering to lock the room. Maria, having finished cooking, put the pie in the oven and tired, sat down on a chair. All that remained was to wait for the next time Molly came, explain to her that everything was ready, and quietly leave the apartment. Maria tilted her head dreamily. What an interesting life Alaska has, she thought. Time dragged on, the pie was almost ready, and it was important not to miss the moment when it was time to turn off the stove. Maria was developing. She suddenly realized that she was terribly tired. Her already heavy eyelids became even heavier, and Maria began to fall asleep. There seems to be some kind of commotion in the hallway. Are they leaving the apartment? I had no energy left to think about it. And she curled up on the kitchen table and quietly fell asleep in the oven. Who knew how this tiredness would turn out? Maria woke up to the fact that the whole kitchen was filled with black, thick, acrid smoke. Shit the oven, she thought, and rushed toward the stove to turn it off. But her legs went treacherously under, and Maria collapsed on the cold tiles. The fire had time to think. Her lungs filled with thick smoke, and she hardened hard. Molly, Molly, fire. The girl began to shout, but it seemed to be too late. The oven had burst into flames, spreading more and more into the kitchen. Smoke filled the entire space. Maria rushed to the kitchen door on wobbly legs. It was locked. She shouted to Molly, "Open the fire." Maria shouted, gasping even harder. There was a ringing silence in the apartment. It was as if there was no one there at all. The fire flared up with renewed vigor and pulled its heated tentacles toward the unfortunate woman's face. "Open up." Gasping, she screamed. Molly and her lover had left the apartment hours ago, forgetting that Maria was locked in the kitchen. Did Molly forget about her brother's girlfriend, or did she leave her there on purpose, afraid the man would find out who cooked those wonderful meals? Who knows? In any case, such an oversight almost cost Maria her life. The girl was saved by neighbors, who in time called the fire department on the already not beautiful face of Maria. Now for the rest of her life there are horrible, horrible scars. Her body burned as her soul burned. Sometimes it seemed to her that she had died in that fire, and her present life was only a prolonged death agony. Maria had never been noted for her beauty, but these scars now she was forced to live the life of an outcast. Now those around her began to truly avoid her, and small children fearfully poked their fingers at her, calling her a monster. Maria had lost everything. Jacob had left her as soon as he saw what had become of her face. He could not accept the fact that his future wife was not only ugly, but also disfigured with horrible scars. Molly, for whom Maria had failed to escape the fire, was never found. It seemed that the young girl simply disappeared from the city, vaporized, leaving behind only pain and disappointment. Molly's family, including Jacob, were just throwing up their hands. "We don't know where she is," they said. Perhaps the girl was simply afraid of the responsibility. Maybe she was ashamed to look Maria in the eye after all that had happened? Maybe both. In the end, she managed to avoid criminal punishment. Her whereabouts are still unknown to this day. Maria was left all alone, disfigured, abandoned by everyone. Her fiancé refused her, expressing his dissatisfaction with her appearance. Poor thing, right to her face. Maria was finally disappointed not only in her external data, but also in other people. Along with that fire, she buried the idea that she could ever be truly happy. Happy in marriage, happy in a relationship. All of the crippled girl's dreams had been shattered. Maria was now 35 years old, 10 of which she had lived with the best scars all over her face and body. And after her first and last fiancé left her, Maria realized that she would never find love. All her attempts to marry and have a child were left in the distant past. In the past where there were no betrayals and such annoying scars. Maria had gone head over heels into work, namely cooking. She had always loved to cook, at a time when the rest of her classmates were puzzling over where to go to school. She clearly knew her purpose. Her calling was the culinary arts. After a tough breakup and a long rehabilitation after that horrible fire, Maria took up a job. She worked in many restaurants, participated in competitions, took various courses, and her hard work paid off. Now Maria was one of the best chefs in her city, and maybe in the whole country. Every day she was offered vacancies in different restaurants, but Maria was faithful to her choice. She worked at the best location in the center of the city. Maria's job was not just a job, it was her hobby, her passion, her life's work. She would come in after work and immediately start bulleting at home. She kept a small blog on the internet, describing in articles a variety of recipes. And naturally, she blogged only in written format. Maria passed out tips to her neighbors. She often cooked for orphanages. In general, the girl's life was completely devoted to cooking. She had no time for anything else. Or maybe she just didn't want to give her time to anything else. Her life was moderately good. Maria had a very, very good salary. Her internet blog also brought in a good income. She was often invited to various programs, but Maria expectedly declined. Her appearance was the young girl's biggest pain. The scars after the fire she had suffered did not let her live peacefully. The proportional facial features were for her the anchor that did not let her float away into a happily married life. Just recently, on her 35th birthday, Maria decided to give herself a second chance. After listening to her colleagues at work, she decided to try her luck once again and started a page on a dating site. Even though her friends told her to put her photos on the site, if you don't like yourself so much, you can't sit under the guise of another person. It's not fair. Maria herself did not want to accept it. On the internet, she found pictures of some girl. She thought to herself, yes, we look alike, and put someone else's images on the net. She was immediately flooded with various dating offers. But Maria, realizing that she would disappoint her admirers, quickly rejected them. Her attention was attracted by only one person on the site, David. The girl could not pass by him. Young people communicated for hours, corresponded in the network, and it seemed that Maria managed to find someone to live together. But their meeting was not destined to happen. David often offered to go on a date, and Maria, no longer able to come up with excuses, decided to agree to the meeting. A delightful plan was brewing in her head. The girl came up with an idea to try the power of makeup on herself. She signed up at the best beauty salon, chose a makeup artist for a long time, and decided to print out a photo of the girl she pretended to be on her home printer. She came to the beauty parlor asking for help. The makeup artist scowled her eyebrows when she heard about her client's request. She perfectly understood that thanks to makeup is possible a lot, but such a completely changed the face of a person she was not able to do, and even these terrible scars. But she agreed to take the job, especially since the strange client paid double the price. And then what happened? Well, then what happened was what happened. Maria realized that no makeup will not help her radically change. No makeup will not fix the consequences of the fire. She realized and accepted it as a given. She deleted her page from the dating site and once again gave up the idea of getting to know someone. Only this time she left the idea behind for good. Summer was in full swing. Birds sang in the night. Frogs were croaking in the local park. The nights were shorter and warmer. The whole world seemed to blossom before our eyes. The restaurant where Maria worked had opened an outdoor veranda, and there were many times more customers. The freshness and radiance of summer days infected the girl herself, and she decided to bring something new into her life and started running in the mornings. The morning sun spread its translucent smoke and rays wide. The city had not had time to wake up yet, but some of the passers-by were already living their lives, walking their dogs and playing sports. Maria took a deep breath of fresh air beauty. She thought, maybe I should get a dog too. That way I'll definitely get out for my morning walks. She continued to give in to her own fantasies until she stepped out into the park and noticed how beautiful its morning view was. The local small pond was bathed in the light rays of the sun. The few passers-by smiled welcomingly. Maria was immediately embarrassed and, pulling her cap lower in order to hide her own face, stood on the asphalt path with markings for running and ran to Baku. Immediately stabbed, and her heart desperately tried to jump out of her rib cage without running even 200 meters. She stopped to catch her breath. The sun was rising higher and higher. The rays were getting hotter. The black tracksuit was getting hotter and hotter. Shit, I should have read up on running technique first. She scolded herself, but then an interesting and insanely handsome family caught her eye. A tall, stately man, dressed in gray athletic pants and tight white t-shirt, was explaining something to a little boy about 12 years old. Next to them stood a girl. She looked no more than 8 years old. She was watching her father and brother with interest, but she stayed back, holding a large doll with bright red hair. Maria, forgetting about God, looked at this family with admiration. How beautiful that girl was. Blonde, long hair, big gray eyes. Maria thought for a moment that the girl reminded her of Molly, and the scars scattered all over her body ached with renewed pain. Maria, who realized that she needed to rest for a while before continuing her run, sat down on a bench and watched the happy family from afar. Happy, friendly, so beautiful. She was unable to fight her own imagination and gave into daydreaming. She imagined that this beautiful man was her husband, and this cheerful, mischievous boy and her eldest son, the beautiful girl and her daughter. And Maria herself is a beautiful, statuesque woman. The family was actively playing on the playground. And then, like Maria herself, the father of the children, stood on the jogging track and began to explain something to his children. Maria thought, if I looked better, I wouldn't have been shy, I would have approached. And really, she could use some training in running technique. But Maria was different. She preferred to remain sitting alone, just watching the happy family. I wonder what their mom looks like. What does the wife of such a fine status man look like? Maria smiled, hiding her smile behind the palm of her hand. Once more, she corrected her cap and returned to her position, intending to continue running. The days went by. Maria, to her own surprise, did not give up running. Every day the exercise became easier and easier. With each new day, she broke her own record. At work, things were going better than usual. There were more and more customers satisfied with the chef's work, and Maria's management raised her salary. She thought maybe I should open my own restaurant. Life slowly flowed thick honey. Work was boiling, and Maria herself, accustomed to the morning run, began to feel much better. One warm, velvety evening, Maria invited her only friend Kelly to a meeting. The girl worked as a pastry chef in the same restaurant as Maria herself. Kelly smiled broadly and sat down at a table in a small cafe. She was Maria's age, but looked expectedly much better. Her short, thick brown hair was cut short and styled in a lush style. Her face, studded with freckles, seemed to glow from within. The girl was wearing short white shorts. On top was an interesting beige, lightweight sweater. She sat down in her seat and began flipping through the menu. "Look at this," she said indignantly. "This is my signature dish. It's my idea, this cake. What right do they have to steal a dish from our restaurant?" Maria smiled demurely, adjusting her large sunglasses. "Oh, come on. Like you're not aware that half the city steals from our menu. Forget it. Everyone comes to our place anyway. Kelly nodded. Yeah, it's just kind of annoying. I spent so long picking out the ingredients for my creation, and they just stole it. You know, I'm gonna order some. See how they do it. Maria couldn't hold back a smile. Kelly was not only her only friend, she was also just a good person. Maria always consulted her before making any important decision. The pastry chef had a special, bright soul. Maria was happy that after a series of failures, fate took pity on her and gave her such a beautiful and wonderful friend, Kelly. She started the conversation, and the girl responded with a gesture of her hand. She called the waiter to the table and made an order. Look, is something wrong with you? You look worried. I'm not. What do you mean? Yeah, I don't even know where to start. Maria was embarrassed. Without saying a word to the waiter standing next to her, she poked her chubby fingers into the first salad she saw and some cocktail with a hard-to-pronounce name. After waiting for the young man to take their order and leave, she continued talking. I've been thinking a lot lately. I want to change my life more and more often for the better, and I would like to consult with you. Yes, I'm happy to help you. Kelly seemed to blossom in front of her eyes. I hope you want to put your picture up on that dating site. Or did you decide to meet that Dima guy? Oh my God, I'm so happy for you. Maria, laughing, raised her right hand in the air. Hold your horses. I'll never put up pictures of myself. You know that. And David. She lowered her voice. I don't want to talk about Dima anymore. That idea I had was really stupid. But how was I going to have a relationship with him if we started by cheating? It wasn't me in my profile. I wasn't the one he asked out. No, that's stupid. I deleted my profile. Never again. You're wrong. Kelly interrupted her friend. You guys were texting for a long time before he asked you out. Didn't you? He wasn't just asking for the girl in the picture. He was asking for a person. Yeah, I lied. But that doesn't mean anything. I think you should meet him. You know, it's better to try and regret it than not try at all. No. Maria shook her head no. I don't want to see him anymore. I'm too far gone. I don't want to talk about Dima or dating anymore. I called you to talk about something else. Kelly sighed heavily. All right, whatever you say. So what's on your mind? What's on your mind? Maria has had her back lately. She adjusted her glasses again, knowing full well that she looked completely ridiculous wearing them in the evening. She adjusted a button on her black blouse and finally said, I want to adopt a child. Kelly let out her eyes in surprise, which stretched out. She asked adopt. But why adoption exactly? Don't you want your own birth child? It's not like you're infertile. Kelly, but don't be ridiculous. At that moment, a waiter appeared at their table, holding a large tray with an order. He carefully placed the plates and glasses on the table and walked quickly to another table. Maria, after giving him a glance, lowered her voice even more. Look at me. I'm not beautiful even without scars, but what children for me? What if it's a girl? And I don't want my child to suffer from its ugliness, just like I suffered once. No, I won't give birth on my own. Maria, why do you feel that way about yourself? I'm sure there's a man in this world who will think you're the most beautiful in the world and will think the same of your daughter. But why would you adopt? Go back to the dating site. Put your picture up finally, find a man and start a family with him. Maria laughed, covering her mouth with her hand. Don't talk nonsense. I'm ugly. No one will ever marry me. And those scars. No, that's not a good idea. I want to adopt a child and raise it myself. I'll pick the cutest one and then Maria. Kelly frowned his eyebrows at Maria. But you're not married. As far as I know, single women aren't just allowed to adopt a child. So, Maria flared up. I'll buy a marriage, but I'll enter into a sham marriage. I'll pay someone off and I'll be done. My income is good. You know that, don't you? The apartment's a big puddle. What makes you think it's a bad idea? I don't, quietly replied her friend. I just think you should try to give birth yourself first. Why did you get so excited about it? Something must have put you onto it. Maria tilted her head dreamily. Oh yes, how well you know me. I saw a family. So wonderful, I envy them. Such happy children. Yes. What kind of family? Kelly asked, carefully paying for a small piece of cake. I met them somewhere. I haven't met them. I'm shy. Remember I told you I started running in the mornings? Well, the first day I met their father and two beautiful kids. They were having so much fun playing, they were so happy. I realized I wanted to have kids too. I see them every morning. They run and play on the playground too. It's beautiful. Yeah, that sounds great. Kelly wanted to smile, but suddenly she wrinkled her nose as she tasted the brownie she had ordered. Ew. What's gross in here? Pistachios. Oh my God. That's not in my recipe. What idiots? Asked Maria, smiling. Yeah, they're full. So what's their mother like? Have you seen her? Not once, answered Maria, showing her friend her genuine surprise. Interesting, isn't it? I wonder where she is every morning. Why isn't she with them? Do you think it works? Or maybe they have a third child? Or maybe she's sick? I wonder, man, I wonder. Maybe it does work. What time do you usually see them? Around 600. Sometimes earlier. Isn't that weird? What kind of place is a mom of two working that she can't be with her family that early? No, I think it's something else. Maybe it is, but what is it? Honestly, I've been racking my brain wondering where their mom is. What makes you think they have a mom? Kelly asked me out of the blue. Maybe that man is a single father. You didn't think about that? What man? And alone? No, it can't be. Even if he's divorced, he must have a wife. He's so handsome. He, girlfriend. Kelly whistled, interrupting her. You like him? Yeah, then you should meet them. See if it works out. Things happen. Maria poked and prodded, setting down her glass of not-so-delicious drink. Don't start. Even a man like that will never pay attention to me in my life. And what would I say to them? I'd look like some kind of maniac. I've been following them for weeks. It's so weird. It's not weird, Kelly. It's worth a shot if it doesn't work out with him. Or maybe he does have a wife, something to lose, maybe a friend. Oh, come on. Maria laughed. Look, I'm not gonna finish it. This is something. Was there any more salad? Nothing. And the smoothie was basil and banana. Maybe we should go. Let's go, Kelly replied, highlighting the corners of her mouth with a napkin. Summer was coming to an end. The days were getting shorter and shorter, and the sun had stopped being so unbearable. Each morning was colder than the last, and Maria realized that she wouldn't be able to run in the mornings anytime soon. The cold wind was nasty in her ears, making them ache for days, and sullen clouds were appearing more and more often in the once perfectly blue sky. Maria went out for her morning run once again. Low, dense clouds filled the entire space. The smell of an approaching downpour lingered in the air. Maria was getting lower, but still headed towards the park. She had time to think about what would happen when the cold weather came. I won't see this wonderful family again. Oh, maybe I really should meet them. Drowning in her own thoughts, Maria didn't notice when she arrived at the playground park. It was just like each of the previous days. She noticed a familiar sight. A happy father was explaining something to a fidgety left-handed boy. The pretty girl was thoughtfully brushing the hair of her fiery red doll with her little fingers, glancing at her father from time to time. Whether the day had been special or whether something incredible and magical had happened to Maria overnight, she finally decided to approach them. She knew exactly what the family would be doing in the near future. After all, she had been following them for a long, long time. So Maria decided to wait until the father and children started running, and started the first lap. When she finished the start of her workout, the man and the children stood at their positions expectantly. Maria switched to jogging, thinking it through. Dating. And Maria began to fall into sheer panic. What am I going to tell them? How and why would I meet them? No, that's a terrible idea. I should just run past them and that's it. Even though it wasn't noticeable, the girl was terribly nervous. She still hadn't made up her mind to meet the family she was interested in. Why? She decided to just run past them. However, fate had its own plans, and the moment she ran a meter away from them, her sneaker treacherously caught on another, and Maria crashed on the wet asphalt, turning her foot. Maria seemed to freeze like the truest of beasts. She tried to get up, but her leg ached with renewed vigor. In a panic, she quickly put on her flying cap and put back on her already dirty sunglasses. They mustn't see my face. They shouldn't, panicked, the girl thought. The thoughts failed to develop further because a concerned man immediately ran up to her. Girl, are you all right?" he asked. "How are you? How's your leg?" "Ah, I saw you fall. That must have hurt like hell." "Oh, no. It's fine," Maria lied back. "Don't worry, go back to the children. I can manage on my own." "No," suddenly he exclaimed. "Let me help you, your leg." "Oh, how you feel." And with these words, he approached Maria, helping her to her feet. Everything stirred inside her. This man was so close. She blushed from head to toe, mentally thanking herself that she had managed to pull her cap back on in time. Replied to, "Thank you. My leg does hurt a lot. Maybe I should walk you home. Me and the kids are done practicing. We could help you walk home. How far do you live? Show me which way." Maria seemed to be drowning in the flow of the stranger's questions. She was silent for a long time before she said anything in reply. Her mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. But he was lying, wasn't he? They hadn't even started training yet. Who but Maria, who'd been watching them all summer, wouldn't know that? She rose to her feet, tried to pull away from the stranger, but he held her insistently by the waist. She said, "No, I don't live far away. Thank you for your help. I can take it from here." "It's not worth it." The man was surprised. "Are you sure?" He turned his head, examining his children, and asked him a question. "Children, you don't mind if I walk the girl home, do you?" The children answered no. The boy took a step forward. "Did you fall so hard? You're in a lot of pain. Let us walk you home. It's high time Daddy made friends with someone." The man looked menacingly at the boy, who immediately shut up. He continued, "Yes, we insist. Well, which way is your house?" Maria is no longer able to resist. She agreed. "All right, thank you. I live over there, behind that house." She stretched out her arm, pointing in the right direction. "What happened?" "I fell, I don't know. There didn't seem to be any piles or rocks." The man smiled broadly. "There weren't. You're just running." "Not quite right. If you'll excuse me." "What do you mean?" she asked in surprise. At that time, Maria, together with a man she didn't know, and his children were already walking in the direction of her house. Their conversation was taking shape by itself. "Well, I mean, you're putting your feet wrong. In fact, running is a complicated art of running so that you don't get tired early and your legs don't hurt. You still have to learn. No offense to me, but I've seen you in this part before. I even wanted to come up to you, but yes, my dad wanted to meet you." Suddenly, a little boy came into the conversation. He was just shy of you. Kevin, the father, shushed his son. "It's not appropriate to butt into the conversation like that." The boy was embarrassed and returned to his sister, who was walking next to him, silently. Maria didn't know what to say. "You wanted to meet me?" Unable to hide her surprise, she asked, "But why?" The man was embarrassed after his son. "Oh, don't get any ideas. I didn't mean anything by it. It's just that you run in the mornings and I'm with the kids. I thought we could run together." "Yeah," Maria seemed ready to pass out from shock. "But you really could." "Oh, there's my house." At this point, the company was already approaching the tall, 24-story, candlestick house where Maria lived. "Thank you for seeing me off." "You're welcome." The man smiled broadly, revealing white, even teeth. "By the way, my name is Thomas, and you are Maria." She lowered her eyes in embarrassment, trying to hide her face from his gaze. "Well, I'll be going. Shall I walk you to the door?" "Are you sure you can get up?" Maria was visibly nervous. In fact, she would have liked to spend as much time with such a man as possible. But suddenly she was reminded of the bright eye-burning light burning in the elevator of her house. She immediately thought of how unfavorable her scars would look in that light. She immediately imagined Thomas looking at her face in disgust, little Kevin pointing his finger fearfully at her, calling her a monster. No, she couldn't let that happen, especially since there was no sun at all outside, and the dark clouds made it feel like late evening rather than early morning. Maybe they still couldn't get a good look at her face. No, they shouldn't. "Thank you. I'll go, Maria." called out to the girl by her new acquaintance. So we could start running together. What do you say? How about next week, when your leg feels better? Of course, she replied cheerfully. Of course I'd be glad. See you then, Maria said her name again, Thomas. Maria, forgive me for being so impertinent, but I never saw your face. To tell you the truth, before, when I saw you running past, I wondered what you looked like. You're always wearing a cap and glasses. May I ask you to take them off? Pardon my impertinence? No, Maria replied sharply. Aya, I can't. That's all. Thomas's eyebrows rose in surprise. Oh, I'm sorry. It's just that I wouldn't even recognize you if I saw you in a store, for example. We're practically neighbors. I'd like to know you by sight. No, replied the girl and turned around through the wild, all-consuming pain in her leg. She proved to the driveway and fled fluently through its doors, showing her face to this handsome man. No way in the world, thought the girl. It seemed to her that, seeing her scars, her facial features, he could be disappointed in her in an instant. Maria went up to her apartment, took off her annoying cap, threw her giant glasses on the coffee table. She had mixed feelings. On the one hand, she was glad to have met this family, but on the other hand, was he following her as much as she was? But why? Maria couldn't find any answers to her questions. The whole situation seemed strange, stupid. Why did he want to meet me? She thought. Of course, because he didn't see my face, he didn't see my scarred body. To see the real me. Not hiding behind glasses, a cap and a bunch of clothes would never look at me. The girl walked into the bathroom and only now realized how much her leg hurt. She tried taking the shower. It didn't work. It seemed she had earned a real fracture. Unable to hold on any longer, she called work to tell them she couldn't make it and called an ambulance. A couple of hours later, Maria was sitting in the hospital waiting room with a cast on her ankle. Maria went home with a displaced fracture of the leg. She could hardly move. Why even her favorite job had to take a sudden sick leave? And running was out of the question. The girl's entire foot and ankles were in a cast. Even to the toilet, the kitchen, or the bathroom she reached with great difficulty. One of those unfortunate and immobilized them days. The cook's doorbell rang unexpectedly. Hello. Kelly appeared on the doorstep. In her hand, she could see a valise filled with oranges and a large box of medicine. How are you? Asked the girl. How's your leg? Oh, Kelly, thank you for coming. A sincere, happy smile shone on Maria's face. After the death of her parents, Kelly was the only person in the whole world that Maria could not be shy. In front of her friend, she could be sincere. She could be real, and she could be herself, if at the sight of everyone else Maria, embarrassed, pulling down her cap or a wide-brimmed hat, hid her smile behind the palm of her hand and tried not to show her emotions. Then with Kelly, it was completely different. With Kelly, Maria could laugh at the top of her voice. She could smile at the top of her mouth without hiding her face. With Kelly, the girl was a little happier than usual. In front of her, there was no need to hide. She opened the door wide. Come on in. Come on in. Are you taking the day off today? You should have gotten some sleep, not come to my place. You're giving me a hard time. It wasn't supposed to be. But I took it to visit you, so don't wake me up. So tell me how you're doing. How did you manage to fall so hard you broke your leg? Maria smiled entreatingly at there was such a thing. She, taking in her hands the wand, which she had recently ordered on the web, slowly, trying not to cloud, scratching at her sore leg, walked towards the kitchen. Let's go sit down. I'll tell you everything. The spacious kitchen of the man working as a chef was made in light beige colors. High ceilings, smooth, perfectly clean kitchen counters, marble tiles on the floor, hanging plants in pots, catchapots, and a lone morning ray, now residing through the white translucent curtains. All of this was inspiring, setting the right mood. In this kitchen, Maria really created. In this kitchen, she made the best culinary masterpieces, although now she was, you could say, disarmed. The kitchen was still her favorite place in the apartment. In the mornings, she liked to drink fresh over brewed coffee, looking out the wide window and nearby park. In the evenings, she liked to pull up a white dry wine, sitting at his laptop, This kitchen was a place of strength and a place where all grudges were forgotten, and one could truly enjoy a life that often wasn't so great. Kelly walked into the spacious kitchen, followed by her friend, and sat down at the bar. At the same time, Maria tried to do the housework, but her friend stopped her with a single glance. "So sit down, I'll make us coffee." She walked along the long kitchen tops. "So where is it?" "Yeah, I see it. But tell me what happened." Maria bowed her head dreamily. "Oh, Kelly, I met them." Kelly raised her eyebrows in surprise. Who did she meet? Laura gave her friend a long look as her eyes widened, and she almost jumped on the spot. "And with them, this family of athletes." "Yeah," Maria replied cheerfully. "Really, as you can see, it cost me a lot." She looked down at her leg. "But now we will run together. Really, it's great." "Frost." "Oh yes, that's great," Kelly replied. "So you two met. How? Did you finally decide to approach them?" "Well, almost." And Maria told her friend about her unusual acquaintance with that mysterious family. Told her how she had planned to meet them and how she had asked them out of the blue. But the acquaintance was still destined to take place. "Wow," Kelly commented on the story. "From the bread from a small coffee cup. You know, that's real destiny." "Oh, come on," Maria replied with embarrassment. "Would you say that too?" "Well, where is his wife? The wife of this Thomas. Did you ask about her?" "I wondered, didn't I?" "No. How come?" Kelly lamented. "But how could you forget about something like that? Maybe she really is working. Maybe she's sick. Maybe she's not. Maybe. Maybe she's interested in coming forward. Maybe she's not even here. Why, maybe he's a single dad. What makes you so sure he's married? Oh, well, how could he not be? Such a tall, handsome man. Such beautiful children. If he's really divorced, there's no way I'll believe he hasn't remarried. And I didn't forget to ask about his wife. It was just kind of awkward or something." "Oh, come on. What's awkward about it? It's no big deal. Besides, it's an important factor. What if his jealous wife finds out his husband's running around in the morning with someone else? And how do you make a scene? Do you need it?" Maria laughed heartily. "Don't be ridiculous. Who in his right mind would be jealous of his man to me? It's a joke, by God. You shouldn't think so, my dear. Besides, he said he's been wanting to meet you for a long time. It doesn't matter if he's married or not. He obviously likes you. Kelly, don't be ridiculous. How could anyone like me? He didn't even see me. He didn't even see my face, my scars. Are you talking nonsense right now?" "Well, maybe he didn't see you, but he could see your figure." Kelly laughed lightly with her head tilted to the side. "So he wanted to meet you. Oh, I hope he's not married. He might be a walker. We don't want that kind of guy." "Oh, Kelly, don't even start." Maria looked down in embarrassment. "You just said we'd run together. That's all. How are you gonna run, sweetheart? With your leg, you won't be able to get out on the track for a long time. Did you at least call him? Warned him you're not able to exercise yet? Did you?" She was genuinely surprised. "Where would I call him? The rail. Where would I get his phone number? Didn't you two exchange contacts?" "Well, Maria, how come?" "No, why? We're not friends, just acquaintances. Of course, you just met him. But you had to keep in touch. He was right to ask you to take your hat off. He wouldn't recognize you if he did. How would you communicate?" Maria smiled enigmatically. "I'm sure I'd recognize them. What's the point? I mean, you'd be too tired to go first." Oh yeah. Time passed and Maria's legs still didn't want to get better. The cast was already removed, but the injury reminded of itself every time the girl walked faster than usual or stood in one place for a long time. Late fall was already falling on the streets of the city. Running was out of the question. Not only because of Maria's injury, but also because of the weather conditions. Life went on as usual. Maria went to work, continued to text blog. One cold fall evening, she even started thinking about starting her own cooking classes. It was getting colder and colder outside, and Maria didn't know where else to spend her free time. Thomas did not get out of her head. Who is he? What does he do? What are his hobbies? What he lives after all? Is he married, and if so, to whom? The girl was just painted with curiosity. On one of her free weekends, She decided to dress warmer to go out for a jog in the early morning. The weather forecasters promised the last, relatively warm fall week. Who knows, maybe Maria would be lucky again. Maria put on a warm, dark brown colored tracksuit and a black sports vest. She was wearing, as always, large sunglasses that took up half her face. Her sparse blonde hair was loose. On her head was a cap with a wide brim. Maria stepped out into the park, looking around. Compared to a summer day, the view of the park looked more like an apocalypse. Despite the good summer weather, the park was empty and almost uninhabited. The bright sunlight lazily spread across the red-orange caps of the trees. The surface of the local pond was calm and more like a mirror. There was no sign of the park's lively network of singing birds or people walking their docile or not so docile dogs. The park was empty, as if Maria was the last human being alive on this planet. She stared, breathed in the already cold, refreshing air, looked around again at no one. It was as if the world had paused. As if all the people knew something that Maria did not know, why they hid in their houses. Maria walked uncertainly along the pond, scrutinized all the benches, walked to the playground. No children or their parents. It seemed that indeed Maria was all alone. However, the feeling of loneliness was already very familiar to her. Looking around the park once more and finally convinced that she would not be able to meet Thomas and his children again, Maria got into position and ran. The wind set in her ears. The once sore leg ached with renewed vigor. Not even a kilometer into the run, Maria stood in place, leaning her palms on her knees. Probably shouldn't have gone back to jogging so soon. When Maria looked up after catching her breath, she was surprised to find herself being followed closely. "Hello." Hesitantly, the girl said hello to her watcher. It was an elderly woman. She looked to be at least 80 years old. The old woman was sitting on a bench nearby. Her whole appearance expressed obvious displeasure. "Did you want to ask me something?" The old woman got up from the bench and slowly approached her. Maria was still looking at no one. Some feeling of uneasiness settled in her soul, and the girl unknowingly paid. "Can I help you in any way?" she asked again. "What are you doing here?" The old woman asked, sticking her wand forward, using the object as if it were a pointer. "You? What are you doing here?" "I went out for a run." "Why?" "Nothing." "Nothing. You don't know what's coming." An old woman smoked mysteriously. "You better go home before it's too late. Can't you see anyone but you?" "Not here?" "Ah, well, yes," answered the girl uncertainly. The sight and tone of that old woman sent a chill down her spine. She frightened the girl for some reason. There was something strange about her, not of this world. "So go away," shouted the old woman. "Soon you will all be infected. Maria is twisted with fear." "Woman, what are you talking about?" Quietly, she asked. "You'll see the girl." All in good time. The old woman's face instantly changed. "You've already survived the fire. Try to survive this disaster." Maria is stunned. "How do you know?" she asked quietly. His hand instantly reached for his cap and glasses. Could this woman really see her scars? The girl's face and became new. It didn't matter. The old woman was back to her angry, terrifying self. "Leaving here? What are you talking about? What's going on? Where are the people? Something terrible is about to happen. It will happen all over the world. People can already feel it coming. He'll come here again. You won't find what you're looking for here. I know what I'm talking about." Maria didn't know what to think. She examined the old woman more closely. Tiny from the mountains, a long grandmother. Her gray hair was tangled in one big witchy mess. Instead of clothes, there were some kind of socks. The old woman looked mad. She was already thinking of turning around and walking away, seeing no point in socializing with the mind-deprived. But something caught her eye. The old woman's eyes were demon eyes, half transparent. It seemed she was blind. Maria was completely confused. "Are you blind?" "My eyes don't help me anymore." "It's true. I can't see anything that's going on around me. But I feel I'm not blind at all. What would you think?" The old woman answered enigmatically. How did you realize I survived the fire? Did you feel it? And now you said I wouldn't find what I was looking for here. What did you mean by that?" "I see what I mean. The old woman replied in a calm tone. She suddenly smiled broadly, revealing rotten teeth, and stepped forward. "Your fate will be as blind as I am. Farewell." And with those words, she abruptly turned around and headed towards the exit of the park. Mad woman, Maria thought to herself, trying to calm the frantically beating heart. But what was she talking about? She wondered. The empty streets began to press on the girl. The deserted expanses suddenly began to frighten Maria. Waiting for the old woman to disappear behind the wide gates of the park, she followed the same direction to the exit. Some feeling of anxiety and approaching trouble settled in her soul. What was she talking about? What infected were they talking about? She had no answers to these questions. Maria left the park with a quick step, no longer able to stay in that place for a second. Maybe the old woman knew something. Time flew by at breakneck speed. Maria was drowning in her work, not paying attention to the rest of her life. The blog was gaining more and more subscribers. Work was a real drag. The colder it was outside, the more people wanted to sit in some cozy place, trying new and interesting dishes. Maria's culinary skills were in high demand. The cold, snowy winter came, followed by the equally cold, but already more friendly spring. The girl did not pay any attention to the change of year. All her thoughts were immersed in work. Well, almost all of them. Still, sometimes, literally a couple times a month, Maria decided to get out to the park. She realized that such weather was not suitable for jogging. Especially in their city, they didn't keep the roads clear of snow. But something was pulling her to this place. She still hoped that she would meet Thomas and his beautiful, beautiful children there. Maybe they had moved away. The girl thought wistfully. Maybe Thomas had gotten sick. She could not find a suitable answer. Why didn't the family come to the park anymore? After all, they used to spend every summer morning there. What had happened to make them stop going out? Especially since Thomas said they were neighbors, which meant he lived nearby. Where else would he go with his kids but in this park? Their sudden disappearance was more than strange. Maria Kelly's friend joked probably his wife found out about your acquaintance from jealous, forbade him to go to that park. But Maria just waved him off. How can you be jealous of me? The girl wondered. No, there was definitely something wrong. Since that strange, frightening day, it's been months now. But the words of that old woman did not get out of Maria's head. How did she realize that the girl had been in the fire? If she was blind, what expressions was she talking about? At first, Maria didn't want to share the incident with anyone. But then she still decided to tell about such a strangeness to her friend. Kelly told Dawn so. Kelly shook her head incredulously. The girls met in a small, cozy bar after a hard day's work. Both of them ordered a glass of pink wine. This is crazy. You're probably being played, aren't you? Who cares? Maria lamented. What's the point of a prank? I don't know. Kelly thought, tilting her head to the side. Maybe it's some kind of social experiment? No, the girl continued. She really was blind. I saw for myself how she would have realized I'd survived the fire. There's just no such thing. Then there's those predictions of hers. Maybe she was wearing contacts and pretending to be blind. She saw your scars, so she decided to make it creepy. And I don't know, it's kind of weird. That's what I'm saying. Weird. Maria reached for her glass. Even if she was wearing contacts, she wouldn't have been able to see my scars behind my cap and glasses. Oh, and the park was so creepy that day. There was no one there at all. How often does that happen? Oh, sweet Kelly, she shook her head condescendingly. Well, what's your theory? You think that old lady's a witch or something. Well, maybe not a witch, I don't know. A fortune teller. It was really weird. She also said my fate would be blind. You know, I never really thought about it. Maybe I really should meet a blind man. Then he'd never see my face and he could love me. Sweet Kelly reached out and put her hand on her friend's arm and covered her palm with her own. You can be loved anyway, and it doesn't have to be a blind man. It can be any man, blind or sighted, poor or rich. How many times have I told you not to be so hard on yourself? Oh, I don't know. She also said I wouldn't find what I was looking for in that park. Do you think she's talking about that family? You don't really see them anymore. Maria. Kelly jerked her hand to the side. Of course you don't. It's winter. But who wants to take a long walk in this weather? And that empty park was only because of the bad weather. So there was no one there. No, Maria objected. I used to walk there a lot. There was only one day like that. Other days, weekends and weekdays. Anybody? Yes, there are dog walkers. Families with kids in the park. All except Thomas. Do you think I'll ever see them again? You will. Kelly's got a big smile. By the way, have you decided something? What do you mean? Maria asked, surprised. Well, you know how you said you wanted to adopt a baby? Have you thought of something? That Maria changed her face in a flash. No, I can't decide yet. It's such a big step, especially with that old woman. Oh, there you go again. What about that old woman? She said my fate was blind. Maybe I should really look at blind men and see what happens. Then we could adopt a baby together. Maria, you could. You could have one of your own. And it doesn't have to be with a blind man. You could do it with any man. Why do you get over that old lady? What was that about some mysterious contagion? How do you explain that nonsense? Maria the conspirator lowered her voice. Didn't you hear about that thing in China? There's some kind of virus going around. Everyone's getting sick, infected. The old woman said the whole world would be infected. Kelly laughed out loud. Oh, you'll say that your virus will never reach us. The month of March came. The ice blocks and mountains of snow didn't seem to be melting. The cold wind was chilling to the bone. After New Year's Eve, Maria never left the feeling of approaching misfortune, and even the words to that old woman. After consulting with Kelly, the girl thought that maybe she really gave too much importance to the words of that town madwoman and almost forgot to think about those frightening prophecies until the quarantine was declared in their town. The whole world was sick with a terrible new disease. People were dying from it in every corner of the globe. As soon as Maria heard about the coronavirus pandemic, she thought the whole world had gone from under her feet. The old woman definitely knew. She really felt it. Maybe the old woman wasn't an old woman at all, but something more. Maybe she was Maria's guardian angel. Maybe she was some ancient keeper of secrets. Maybe that old woman was a ghost of the future. Maybe she was a seer. Maria was lost in speculation as she carefully processed all of her clothes upon arriving home. Maria's critical side was in turmoil. The skeptic inside was saying that all this guessing was complete nonsense. Maybe she was a fortune teller, maybe a witch, or maybe just a regular crazy grandmother out of her mind. A town madwoman who just got lucky enough to say her bullshit at the right time to the right person. There's no shortage of fortune tellers. Conspiracy buffs are always predicting various events. Most likely, that grandmother was just a lucky guesser. This is nothing more than an old woman's luck and a terrible event for all mankind. Maria could not understand in any way what part of her personality outweighs the scales, skeptic or conspiracy theorists. In any case, there was more than enough time to think about such things. The restaurant where Maria worked was closed for quarantine. The best. The town's chef was out of a job. Maria did not know where to spend all her free time and, most importantly, where to get money from. The girl, being a workaholic, went crazy with boredom, being in the apartment 24/7. This quarantine simply drove her crazy. She was literally climbing the walls. And then there were the time restrictions. She was forbidden to leave the house. Maria didn't know what to do with her life. What if she got infected too? No, it didn't matter whether her grandmother was right or wrong, but she had to take care of her health anyway. Maria obeyed all the government's orders. She left the house only when allowed and for that time, and only for a good reason with the lack of wages, and accordingly, money, she also sorted out quite quickly. Her cooking block was already generating some income, and Maria also started cooking to order. Many people in her town were happy to learn that the chef of her favorite restaurant continues to work. Maria enlisted the help of her husband, Kelly. He worked as a programmer. Thanks to his help, Maria created her own website and fulfilled small culinary orders, baked cakes, grilled delicious steaks. One cold spring evening, Maria received another order for a cake for a child's birthday. She was horrified to discover that culinary products must be ready by the next morning. and the only ingredients she had were eggs, and they weren't fresh. Maria rushed to the specialty store. "I hate traffic jams," she complained aloud. She drummed her fingers on the steering wheel of the car. She managed to buy everything she needed before closing time. But here on the way home, the girl met a terrible traffic jam from a quietly working radio. Some light pop song was playing. From behind the tightly closed windows every now and then came someone's screams and the annoying hum of cars. Life in the city was boiling. It would seem that everyone should have stayed at home. But judging by the streets of the city, most people ignored the rules. Maybe they're all traveling on some important business. Maybe they were, but Maria couldn't hold back her inner judgmental voice. "Where are you all going?" And she wondered, "Can't you wait until morning? I have really important things to do, and you?" All these questions Maria asked inside herself, as if to the sky. It seemed so time ran a little faster. Finally, the cars started. Maria glowed with joy. With great pleasure, she pressed the gas pedal. Thank God, she continued to rejoice until she discovered the cause of such a long traffic jam. Somewhere up ahead, there was an accident in sight. A small dark gray passenger car had hit a bus. The bus stop that stood nearby was literally bursting with poor people. Maria thought to herself until something caught her eye. It was a flash, a mirage, something that would be difficult to explain in simple words. But the girl was clearly convinced that it was a true sign of fate. For a second, she thought she was the same crazy old woman from the park, as if in the movie, as if someone was lighting her up. Maria could clearly see the old woman standing in the middle of the excited people at the bus stop. Her white eyes seemed to burn with a bright light. Her thin wrinkles and lips broke out in a strange smile and whispered help. Of course, even if she had wanted to, Maria would never have been able to read this or that word from her lips, especially since it was a very, very decent distance to the bus stop. The girl, having managed to clamp the brake pedal, stopped abruptly on the spot. The traffic of cars was very weak, and no one was hurt by such an abrupt stop. She stopped, smoked her eyes hard, then abruptly opened no one in the place where she thought this strange old woman. She was already gone. Truth be told, something still made her pull out of traffic and park not far from this very bus stop. Maria quickly got out of the car and quickly approached the little bus passenger. "Hi, are you all right?" gently asked Maria. "No," answered the girl quietly. She immediately lowered her gaze with tiny hands of force, clutched a doll with fiery red hair. After Maria realized that no old woman was or could be at the stop, she immediately noticed the little girl holding her familiar doll in her hands. At first glance, there was nothing strange about it. There were a bunch of people at the bus stop as it was. Most likely one of her parents was standing somewhere nearby. But some premonition made Maria stop and approach the child. What if she was lost? Maria decided to ask Honey, "You remember me? I met you in the park once. Your daddy's name is Thomas, right? And your brother's Kevin?" The girl looked at the stranger carefully at first, but then her gaze cleared and she nodded vigorously. "I remember. Are you the aunt who fell and hurt her leg?" "Yes, pleased," Maria replied. "That's me. Tell me you're here alone. Where are your father and brother?" The little girl's gaze faded in an instant. "Grandma's head is at Grandma's, and Daddy's not well." "How's what?" The girl asked fearfully. "Where is he?" "He fell. He's not far from here, is he?" "No," answered the girl sharply. "He's at home, Daddy's sick. And for the last couple days, he's even stopped getting up. He doesn't talk back. When I talk to him, he doesn't even make sure I brush my teeth. I'm scared, Maria." The kid's eyes have faded even more. "What? How come? Why isn't your brother with you? Did you leave the house all alone?" The girl only nodded her head in response, clutching the doll tighter and tighter. "After Dad got sick, it was hard for him to be with the two of us. Then Grandma took Kevin to live with her for a while, and I stayed with Daddy. I don't like to stay with Grandma. I only want to be with Daddy." Maria couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Honey, where does your mom live?" The girl looked at Maria with her big gray eyes for a long time, then turned around and ran away. "Stop!" The girl shouted and ran after the child. "Stop! Where are you going?" "I want to help." Maria managed to catch the fugitive only after some time. The girl looped and dashed off into the yards. Maria caught up with her, gently took her hand. "I want to help. What's wrong? Don't you want to?" The girl went into a screaming fit. "You were talking about Mom. I'm not talking about her ever again." Okay. Trying to calm the child, the girl spoke. "You didn't say your name." "When I met you." "What's your name?" The girl looked at Maria incredulously. "Can you be trusted? I can't see you." She stretched a small hand forward, pointing to Maria's big hat, and still the same sunglasses. "There's no sun right now." "Oh well," Maria looked embarrassed. "I look really bad. You shouldn't have to see my face." "No," replied the girl sharply, and in one leap she was next to Maria. She stood on her tiptoes and pulled off Maria's glasses. The accessory fell to the floor, and a sudden gust of wind dragged away the thing without which Maria did not remember herself. Terror gripped her. Poor girl, she thought. She shouldn't see this, shouldn't be so frightened. Maria didn't know what this child's next move would be. She would probably run away. But contrary to expectations, the girl said, "My name is Adriana. Will you help me?" Maria, why wasn't the girl scared? Mutilated in the face. Why didn't she run away? She could only squeeze out one word. "Of course, thank you," Adriana replied. "Daddy's not feeling well at all. I wanted to call my grandmother, but I couldn't open his phone. So I decided to go to her myself, to call for help. I got on the buses, the bus hit. They made me get off here, and I don't know this place. I'm lost. Maria, can you help Daddy?" "Oh my God, of course. Say, do you remember your address?" Luckily, little Adriana remembered the street name, the house number and the floor, and even the apartment number by heart. 20 minutes later, Maria parked in the yard of the right house, and taking the girl by the hand, went up to the right floor. When they entered the apartment, Maria was stunned. In the spacious bedroom lay him Thomas. The man was unconscious. His mouth was open and his eyes were closed. The girl in one step was beside him. Thomas, wake up," shouted she, begging the unfortunate man by the breast. But there was no answer. At that moment, a small hand patted Maria on the shoulder. "Here, take this," said Adriana. Maria, in her hands a smartphone. "This is Daddy's phone, unlocks it. Because I cannot do it. And call your grandmother." Maria hesitantly picked up the gadget. Tried to unlock it, it didn't work. The phone was expectedly behind the password. The girl glanced at the owner of the device. Thomas was still lying unconscious. She said quietly, "Girls, I'm going to call an ambulance now. Daddy will be taken to the hospital. And you?" Adriana interrupted her companion. "Can I stay with you?" Thomas was taken away by ambulance. When asked about the terrible disease that had befallen the man, the paramedics, shrugging their shoulders, replied, "We'll figure it out at the hospital," as Maria did not have any contact or address of the grandmother. And when asked about her mother, Adriana immediately fell silent. There was nothing left to do but to take the girl to her place. Maria and Adriana had to wait for a call from the hospital where Thomas had been taken. That same night, Maria brought Adriana to her home and prepared a guest bedroom for her. "What are you doing?" Adriana asked with interest as she walked into the kitchen. "I am working," answered Maria. "I am a cook and I have to bake a cake for tomorrow." The girl suddenly smiled broadly. "It's for your birthday, isn't it?" "Well, yes. You can't leave the birthday boy without a cake, can you? So I'll have to cook all night. You go to bed, get some rest. You've had a hard day today." "I don't want to," Adriana replied sharply. "I can't sleep while Papa." Tears shone in your eyes. "Papa, how is he?" Maria stopped, took off her pastry gloves, came closer to the girl. "Everything's going to be all right. Everybody gets sick sometimes. It's okay. The doctors will help your daddy, and you'll come home. I promise." Adriana nodded, wiping away her tears with her sleeve. "Maria," she asked gently, "are you even at home wearing glasses?" "Oh, I do," she half whispered. Of course, Maria did not wear glasses or a cap or anything else at home that could hide the scars she hated so much. It was just that she had an innocent little guest in her house today. She didn't want to scare her with her face at all, so she made the decision to hide further. Well, I can see better this way. I don't have good eyesight. The girl hummed incredulously. I know what vision glasses look like. These aren't them. They're from the sun. You were wearing them, and you lost those glasses on the street too. These are different ones. What do you need them for? Maria, Adriana sighed heavily. You see, my face is very ugly and ugly. You are still very young. You shouldn't look at it. It's a normal face. The girl interrupted her. I've seen it before, and it didn't scare me at all. You mean the scars? Yeah, Kevin has one on his knee, and Daddy has one on his back. What's the big deal? Well, honey, they're a little different. No, they're not. And with those words, the girl pulled Maria by the arm, forcing her to squat down in front of her face. She then pulled her little hands up to Maria's glasses and slowly removed them. Now there you are, beautiful. Why do you hide like a mouse? Maria didn't know what to say. I am beautiful. In a trembling voice, she asked, Don't be silly. She reached back for her glasses, but the girl sharply removed the hands in which she held them. But please don't put them on. When you're wearing glasses, am I afraid of you without glasses? Maria asked quietly. Without them, you are not afraid of me in the slightest? Adriana smiled. I like your scars as a pattern. Tears came to Maria's eyes. Thank you, Adriana. You're a very pretty girl, too, she laughed. I didn't fall asleep anyway. Can I help you make the cake? But of course you can. Maria answered and began to explain to the child what she was doing and why. Adriana was the second person Maria had been able to trust with her scars. She was the first person who sincerely told Maria that she looked good. Unhappy, abandoned by her fiancé and surviving a fire, the girl couldn't believe her happiness. It seemed so simple. Not the scars, the patterns. And the world once again played with new colors. While Maria and Adriana waited to be called from the hospital, they spent time surprisingly well in the current situation, laughing, smiling, cooking together, and walking in the park. Of course, sometimes Adriana was sad sometimes, thinking about Daddy. But Maria already knew the approach to this beautiful, bright girl. Together with Adriana, she was as good as she was, except for Kelly. Just a day later, Maria realized that she was ripe to take a child from the orphanage. She didn't need a husband at all. 3 days later, they got a call from the hospital where Thomas was hospitalized. Daddy, Daddy, shouted little Adriana, carrying him down the long hospital corridor. Where is my daddy? How is he? She asked the doctors passing by. Coming through? A large man said in a dry voice. He had small square glasses on the tip of his nose and a large bald spot on his head. So, daughter, and with whom do you come to the sick acquaintance? Maria answered uncertainly. I am a friend of the family. Well, okay. The doctor, having examined the girl, with an incredulous look stretched his hand forward and gestured to invite the visitors to enter the nearest room. Come in, Papa. Adriana whirled into the room. Maria said hesitantly, adjusting her glasses. She followed the girl and saw the following picture. Thomas was lying almost motionless, but it was clear from his wide smile that he was conscious, with a wide bandage over his eyes. Next to him sat little Kevin, who was enthusiastically telling his father something. On the other side sat an elderly woman, probably the children's grandmother. Hello. An elderly woman greeted Maria cheerfully. Oh, thank you so much. If it weren't for you. Her voice broke, her gaze lowered. If it hadn't been for you, could this have happened? My Thomas, he's Maria, came the voice of a man lying in a hospital bed. Maria, is that you? I thought I recognized your voice. I answered the girl quietly. She couldn't take her eyes off the bandage that was over his eyes. On the one hand, she was glad that he would never see her face in the good light. On the other hand, however, she condemned herself for these thoughts. How could one rejoice in another's grief? Scolding herself, she said, What has this blindfold done to you? What was it for? Oh, well, the broad smile vanished from his face. He released Adriana, whom he had hitherto clutched to his chest, from the tight embrace and cleared his throat. The disease had given a complication, and here are the children. Why don't you come down to the cafeteria? Aha. Kevin replied cheerfully. He grabbed his little sister under his arm and stormed out of the room. The door collapsed and Thomas, making sure the kids were definitely out, started talking. I'm sorry, I just don't want to scare them too much. Anyway, the disease has taken its toll, and I think I'm blind. Permanently. Blind, that's what Maria said. The old woman, who had been sitting silently next to her son all this time, sobbed quietly. Maria, on the other hand, didn't know what to say. I'm so sorry to hear that. How could it be? It's terrible, but at least I'm alive. That can't be good. And your eyesight? The doctors say it can come back, but it's a long shot. If I can see again, it'll be a miracle. But I'm happy with what I've got. My kids are fine, and I'm alive. The rest doesn't matter so much. Yes, of course, you're right. She answered quietly. How did you get so sick? You've been unconscious for days. I don't know how it happened. Poor Adriana. She must have been so frightened. She's fine, Maria reassured the man. We even had a good time. Sorry, I completely forgot to say thank you. Thank you for taking care of my daughter. Thank you for calling an ambulance and for the truth in times of need. If it wasn't for you, it wouldn't have been. You don't have to look embarrassed. Well, if you're all right now, I guess I'll be going. Maria, wait. The children's grandmother raised her voice. I too want to say thank you for helping my son and grandchildren. But can't you just leave like that? Adriana, she seems to like you. Can't she at least say goodbye to the kids? Oh, well, of course, I'm happy to stay. Maria looked around and sat down gently on the couch next to me. There was an awkward silence in the room. The first to break the silence was Thomas. You know about the eyesight. He began, it's not that important to me in general. I've seen a lot of things, seen almost everything. But there is one thing I do regret. What's that? Maria asked with interest. I regret that I never got to see your face. The girl's heart skipped a couple of beats, her hands came, and a blush appeared on her cheeks. She fixed her glasses, pulled her cap lower. Come on, there's nothing to see there. Maria, by the way, the grandmother's whole body turned in her direction long beads and made a funny sound. The smell of her dusty, sweet perfume reached Maria. Maria, why are you wearing glasses and a hat? It's better to wear a hat now. It's so cold outside. Fish, Mama interrupted his mother. A man wears what he wants. Don't molest a man. At that second, the door to the ward swung open. Maria had time to exhale, thank God, did not have to make excuses, and the whole room was filled with happy baby, chirping. Daddy, look what we bought, shouted Kevin, but immediately became embarrassed. And his ears turned crimson. Dad, I'll tell you some other time, the doctor said in a gruff voice. Until then, standing in the doorway. Visiting hours are over. The patient is still too weak. And when are you? Are you writing him up? The old woman asked. The children miss him. When will he feel better? Still dryly replied the doctor. Visitors out. Children, socialize with your father. Maria, deciding that she had no right to observe personal family scenes, quickly left the room. When she was already near the registrar, she was called by a familiar elderly voice. Maria, wait, called the woman actively Kelly her hand. Stop, wait, she shouted, but she was moving too slowly. At the same time, Adriana was already running towards the girl. Kevin was there a couple seconds later. Kelly, it's you. Where are you going now? The little girl asked. Daddy hasn't been discharged yet, but I have. She looked around, lowered her voice. And I don't want to live with Grandma and Kevin. I either want to be with Daddy or with you. Maria raised her eyebrows in surprise. Oh, but I don't know. If it's okay with your dad and your grandmother. Maria, is it okay with you? Asked the woman who had already gotten closer. Did she like you so much? She doesn't like coming to my place. She says it's too dark. But children, what can you do with them? Yes? Oh well, I don't mind Adriana staying with me. We get on well together. And if it's okay with you and your son, fine. The woman threw up her hands. I know you can't do that. We don't know each other very well. But you're talking to a very nice man. And Adriana is crazy about you. Yeah, and Thomas told me about you once. I think you met in the park. My name is Daria, by the way. Nice to meet you. Maria answered quietly. Thomas has talked about me, but we've only met once. I wouldn't think he'd remember me at all. You shouldn't think so, the woman replied. Oh, why are we standing here? We're bothering other people. I can take you to lunch. Maria went with Daria and the children to a cafe near the hospital. There, when the children had finished their lunch and had gone to play in the children's room, she decided to ask Thomas's mother something that had been on her mind for the past few months. Daria, she began carefully, may I ask you a question? Of course, the older woman smiled broadly. You know, I think I know what you want to ask. Pardon my curiosity, but where is the children's mother? The day I met Adriana at the bus stop, I asked her about her mom. The girl ran away from me and then said she didn't want to talk about her. You know, back that day in the park when we met, I thought, why doesn't the mother walk with her children? What a beautiful family. How could anyone not want to spend time with them? Anyway, I'm confused. Oh, Mom, Grandma exhaled sadly. She's gone. What do you mean, gone? Oh my God. I'm sorry, Maria's heart began to race again. How could she ask such an inappropriate question? Poor babies. What did she die of? Died? And then there's the grief-stricken mother who ran away. And she abandoned her children. Maria got even more embarrassed. But how could she do that? How can you abandon your own children? Oh, if I'd known. I told Thomas right away that this girl was no match for him. And when he introduced me to her, I knew she wasn't the girl to start a family with. It's still so awful. Poor kids. How did you figure it out? How? Her looks, her demeanor, her manners, her appearance. Maria, I can tell you're a good, kind girl. A girl like you should start a family. And that, oh well, he shouldn't have had anything to do with her at all. What was wrong with her? If Thomas loved her, she must have been pretty good. Well, she was. Pretending, the woman replied, shaking her head reproachfully. The girl was that girl. She's awfully handsome. Hair to the waist, big eyes, but the soul was shallow, dirty. My Thomas would never pay attention to just a pretty girl. He always wanted a girl who was good, kind, wise. She deceived him. At first, when they first met, she was all about pretending she loved cooking the kids. Thomas believed the circus, got married. And then what happened? Ran away when Adriana was 3 months old. Ran away. But to where? How do you run away from a baby that you have to breastfeed? That's how Thomas came home from daycare then, picked up Kevin, came home and froze. His wife's things were gone, the apartment almost empty. Dan even took all the money Thomas was saving for the summer house. The baby is choking from screaming, and this cuckoo left a note, saying, "Such a life is not for me, I'm leaving." She said she's found another man. He's a traveler. He doesn't need all this family life. And she's supposedly tired of all that baby snot, diapers. No, can you imagine leaving your own kid alone in an apartment? It's just creepy. Yeah, it's creepy. Why would she do all that? But if she didn't like it, why start? Daria lowered her voice. Why would she? Thomas is my well-to-do man. Smart, handsome kind. She fell for his money, had children. She probably thought she could dump the kids on a nanny and spend my son's money left and right. That's what happened. Thomas fulfilled her every whim at the beginning of their relationship. He even moved to another city because she wanted him to. But that wasn't enough for her. Anyway, when she left, Thomas refused to ever have a relationship again. Until now, he's alone. But when he talked about you, about me, Maria wondered what he could have said about me. He hadn't even seen my face. Sweet girl, you're an adult. It's time you realized that looks in life are not the main thing. I'm not stupid. I know why you're wearing glasses. Thomas told me he's never seen you without them. Maria, you should never be ashamed of yourself. That's easy for you to say. I'm not just ugly, never mind. Maria was embarrassed by this conversation and decided to change the subject. It turns out that Adriana doesn't even remember her mom. Why does she react so strongly to talk about her? She doesn't, of course. But she's growing up in a community. All her friends have moms, but she doesn't. That's what she's worried about. Kevin's been easier on her sister and her father and grandmother Adriana. Girls, is it hard growing up without a mom? Yeah, it's really hard. Well, I hope Thomas meets his wife. I think we should go. What do you say? The old woman replied quietly. Kevin and I will see you off too. Adriana will stay with you, Maria. Of course, I'll be happy to spend a few more days with her. Good. She rose from her seat and walked slowly to the children's room to pick up the children. Maria. The woman stopped her halfway through. Look after my son, he is a good man. For the next few days, while Thomas was still in the hospital, Adriana stayed with Maria. They got along well with each other and talked a lot. Maria taught the child everything she knew how to do. Maria finally stopped being shy of the little girl because she did not seem to notice her imperfections at all. In the evenings, they watched movies together. During the day, Adriana helped to prepare meals to order. On their free days, they would go for walks in the park. There they often met Kevin and Daria. The girl loved her brother very much, and she loved her grandmother too, even though she didn't like visiting her. On one of those days, Adriana even managed to persuade Maria to go outside without her glasses and headgear. Maria's heart raced as she rode in the elevator and scrutinized her face. She thought she was about to get out and the world would go crazy. People with big torches and rakes would appear from everywhere. They would come at her and shout monsters and monsters. But it didn't happen. Maria, under the arm of a little girl, calmly left the house and calmly went for a walk through the city. People did not pay any attention to her, just calmly passed by on their own business. One of the old ladies passing by even stopped. How does your daughter look like you? She said. Maria answered me. Would you say the same? Maria thought to herself, crazy. How can such a beautiful child be like me? That walk showed the girl that for the most part, all people simply didn't care what she looked like. No one was pointing fingers at her like they once had. No one was behind her back either. Maybe Maria had been hiding all these years for nothing, hiding from everyone. In any case, the past could not be changed, but perhaps the future could be changed. Thanks to the little girl, Maria began to feel a little more confident than she had felt for the last few years. One evening, Maria received a call from the hospital. The stern doctor informed her that the patient was about to be discharged and had to be taken away because he was blind. Maria continued to have mixed feelings. On the one hand, she was glad that he would never see her face, but on the other hand, she fed herself for such thoughts. And also the words of the old woman she had met in the empty park did not leave her mind. Your love will be blind. She kept repeating these words to herself. What would that mean? Maria, Adriana, Daria, and Kevin met before coming to the hospital to pick up Thomas. Maria was a little nervous. What would happen next, she thought. Would we communicate? What kind of relationship will I have with this family? Maria was lost in speculation and could not get rid of the thought that very soon something would change. She couldn't understand what it was, but the feeling of big changes followed her around. Maybe she should start being friends with Thomas. All four of them. They came to the hospital to take Thomas home. Since his eyesight was affected, Daria made the decision that she would move in with him for a while to help around the house. Before opening the wide hospital doors, she made a promise with Maria that she would visit them. Maria gladly agreed. When they passed into the hospital lobby, all staggered in a daze of surprise awe. Children, Kevin. Girl, come here. Next to Thomas stood some incredibly beautiful girl. Her thick blonde hair was building on her thin shoulders. Her big gray eyes resembled lakes. She gently held Thomas under her arm. He looked scared. Kids, it's me, little Kevin paid. Who are you? Asked the boy and hid behind his grandmother. Don't touch our daddy. Honey, is it me? Answered the pretty girl. Your mom? Mom stepped forward. Adriana, we don't know you. You're not our mom. She's our mom now. The little girl stretched out her hand and pointed at Maria. Maria was stunned. Who else are you? The pretty girl asked her. My husband's mistress. Maria still stood still. She tried to get a closer look at the stranger, but the dark sunglasses prevented her from doing so. There was something about this girl, something painfully familiar. What are you doing here? Daria asked sternly. I remembered that I had children once, only they've already forgotten you. You're not their mother, you're only their biological mother. Get out of here. You're not welcome here. What am I doing here? Asked the girl, laughing. Actually, in case you didn't know, I'm Thomas's wife. I got a call from the hospital saying he was blind. Of course I came back. I can't leave my family in the lurch. You've already left them. Daria replied. Thomas intervened in the conversation. It's my fault. We never got divorced. Nobody knew where she'd gone. I was going to file for divorce, but I never got around to it. It's good to have you back. We're finally seeing each other. But if you didn't get a divorce, then you didn't want to. The girl affectionately took Thomas under her arm again. But we're going home, and you about us, apparently, and looked at Maria with anger. And you are no longer needed here. You're such a bitch, Molly, said Daria, that your man left you or you ran out of money? You've come to steal from us again. But no, I'm not going to let you ruin my son's life this time. You better leave nicely or else. Molly, Maria repeated quietly. She finally realized who was standing in front of her was the same Molly, the same sister of her ex-fiancé, the very person for whom Maria had been disfigured. Her burn scars ached, tears welled up in her eyes, and her hands shook. Molly, where have you been? Quietly asked Maria. What do you want? What business? Snarled the girl. Maria did not say anything in response. In that second, the whole puzzle came together in her mind. That mysterious man, for whom Molly was trying so hard, was the man for whom Maria had cooked the dishes that had caused that terrible fire. It was Thomas. I can't believe Maria didn't realize it. That voice was hoarse. Somewhere in the back of her mind, Maria knew it was him. And how Adriana resembled her own mother. Molly had forced her new lover to move out. Right after the fire, fearing criminal liability by moving out, she had children. And then Thomas forced her to move back in. Maybe that's why she ran away, afraid of being caught and prosecuted for locking an innocent girl in a fire. But why Maria was back now, and I wished I could throw myself at her, claw at her hair, scratch her entire face with my fingernails, scratch it so that Molly would understand what it was like. Understood what it was like to live with such horrible scars on her face. But Maria wasn't that kind of person at all. She just turned around and walked out of the hospital. She never wanted to see Thomas or anyone else from that family again. All she said was good luck and disappeared through the hospital doors. Maria stopped leaving the house. Memories of the betrayal by the heat returned to her painfully every night. Thomas called the girl every day, but she did not pick up the phone. What are we going to talk about? She thought painfully. She wanted to forget everything that had happened to her. But the burns kept nagging. And that family never left her mind. One evening, Maria decided to pick up her cell phone. Her friend Kelly was calling her. Hello, Maria answered quietly. Hello, Maria, where did you disappear to? From the phone came the excited voice of her friend. Oh, I've had an accident. Maria told Kelly everything that had happened to her in the last month. Her friend was completely shocked by what she heard. When Maria finished her story, Kelly said something that changed Maria's life dramatically in the future. Maria, stop thinking about others. Think about yourself. First of all, it's Molly. I mean, she's basically a criminal. You have to go to the police and report that she's back in town. Oh, you think she's still gonna get nailed for this? It's been years. I don't care. She's guilty and she must be punished. You won't know that until you go to the police. Maria was about to say, why would she do that? But something clicked in her head and she answered confidently, yes, you're right. Molly will be punished. With these words, Maria hung up the phone and immediately left the house. Heading for the police station, Maria walked out of the house alone for the first time in her life, not wearing her disguise. She walked confidently to the police station to tell them that the one who made her life go downhill was back in town. Let them see what happened to my face because of her. With that thought, she walked into the room and almost bumped into someone she already knew. Maria. Daria looked at the girl in surprise. Honey, what happened to your face? Fire. It's all a fire, she answered boldly. She didn't seem to care what anyone thought of her. She told Daria about Molly. The woman flapped her eyes fearfully. Then she replied, I knew that girl wasn't just a bad person. She was a criminal. And you know what? I've also come to report her for the theft she committed, which she took my son's money. Maybe we should go together, Maria replied, and they went together to the front office. Mola was sent to prison. The court found her guilty of not helping at the fire and recognized the fact of stealing the money. It turned out that from the day Maria left the hospital doors, Thomas did kick the mother of his children away. He filed for divorce and talked about Maria the entire time. After the trial was finalized, the young people started dating. From now on, Maria didn't care about the scars. She completely stopped being embarrassed by them, and wearing big glasses also on her face did not become more. Although Thomas never saw her face, she knew that he loved her first of all for her soul. And appearance was still secondary. The young people married 6 months later, and Maria moved to live with him. Thomas turned out to be a very wealthy man. He owned a lot of commercial real estate. After learning that Maria dreamed of having her own restaurant, the man gave her the premises and she fulfilled her dream. The children got so used to Maria that they called her Mom, which made her heart flutter. After all, she'd dreamed of having children. And after 5 years of their life together, something happened that Maria had once dreaded. Thomas came into the kitchen. "Honey, I'm here," answered the girl, putting aside. After all, the children were already at school, and Maria woke up early to bake pancakes for breakfast for her beloved. "It's okay. Yes, I am." He moved closer, and Maria noticed how her husband's gaze brightened. "What is it, Maria?" "Aya, I think I can see again," Maria asked fearfully. She tried, her hands automatically reaching for her face, but the man managed to intercept them. "Beloved, I see," joyfully he answered, pulling her into his arms. "It's a miracle I see. And now what?" she asked gently. He gazed into her face for a long time, then answered, "Now I love you even more than before. You, so beautiful." A dome of hands and long dough spilled over the stove and onto the floor. And Maria stood, penetrated by her husband, and cried with happiness. It's not for nothing they say, don't be born beautiful, but be born happy.